A flight from Los Angeles to Tokyo experiences more than a little turbulence, and passengers can't help but scream as things get hectic. People are flung into the roof of the cabin, and others are slammed by the weights of falling luggage. Deployed oxygen masks litter the plane, but nothing stops the passengers from screaming. All the while, a dead body is covered with a blanket in the first-class cabin. It all started 4 hours ago. Susie, recently engaged, joins her fellow flight attendant, Laura, aboard Vista Pacific Flight 7500. They get to talking about Susie's sister's wedding and the little vacation she took. They laugh. Susie explains how much of a good time she had, and Laura asks to see pictures. Apparently, Susie and her fiancé, Nick, abused the photo booth, so she hands Laura a bunch of little pictures. In turn, Laura picks the single frame where Susie wasn't smiling and makes it seem like a big deal. Luckily, Susie had a reason ready, and Laura drops the issue after hearing it. As she's about to leave, she officially welcomes Susie aboard.
I don't need a stolen cell phone, thank you.
At the airport, people from all walks of life show their tickets and passports as they also board Flight 7500 from LA to Haneda, Tokyo. Meanwhile, Susie and Laura wait by the entrance to welcome the passengers. Two couples, Jack and Lynn, and Brad and Pia, approach the plane, discussing how they've been planning the trip for over 10 years. For this reason, they choose to fly first class. Then there's Liz, who's married to Rick, and starts to freak out when she sees a man eating Chinese food, hoping he won't be their seatmate. As luck will have it, their seats are as empty as a symposium about sheep. Everyone's warned to properly store their luggage in the overhead compartments, but one well-dressed businessman named Lance Morrell sneaks a strange box underneath the seat in front of him. His seatmate sees it all happen, but he's old enough to mind his business.
Hey, Jackie, can I have those 2 bottles of champagne?
Just then, Laura tries to reach the pilot, Pete, via the intercom, but he shows up to surprise her by grabbing her shoulder out of nowhere. Laura quickly pushes past the shock and goes on to celebrate the 3 days she and the pilot will spend alone when they arrive at Tokyo. At this point, Pete's phone buzzes, and it's his wife, Meg, calling. He lies about who the caller is and heads to a corner to answer the phone. Meanwhile, Brad and Pia have a secret. They've been broken up for a while now, but have to pretend to be together for the entire 3 weeks of their trip. Of course, Pia hates it, but Brad thinks they should wait before blowing up their lives. Having settled down, Liz can't stop herself from wiping down the seats. She almost loses her mind when a woman with a crying baby seems to be heading to the empty seat beside them, and then again when an overweight man does it. Thankfully, none of them sits with her. She's about to celebrate when this goth girl named Jacinta takes the seat. Without uttering a word, Jacinta takes off her jacket and crosses her legs, revealing too many tattoos and bedazzled heels.
But I didn't.
Uncomfortable, Liz tries to switch seats with her husband, only for a random Asian lady to take the seat beside him. It's almost like she's itching, so she talks to Jacinta about taking the empty seats in the back. Unfortunately, Jacinta doesn't want to move, leaving Liz feeling like peeling off her own skin. In the cockpit, Captain Pete and his co-pilot, Tom, ask permission from control to begin their flight to Tokyo. Within seconds, they get the go-ahead. Raquel is scared that she's pregnant, but her boyfriend, she's talking via Skype, doesn't think she has anything to worry about. He calms her down, gets her to say how much she loves him, and the call ends shortly, with her seatmate, Jake, smirking.
Engage thrust mode.
At the same time, Susie gives an orientation on how to use the life jackets and oxygen tanks. When she's done, Lance answers his phone, yelling a little too loudly. This draws the attention of everyone within earshot, and Laura approaches him soon enough. She quickly notices the box he hid, but when she tries to stash it for him, Lance refuses. He then stashes it away by himself. Jake tries talking to Raquel, but Susie stops by to scold him about his device still being on. He doesn't listen, so Raquel helps him turn it off. Ultimately, Captain Pete is cleared for takeoff and engages thrust mode without delay. Everything moves smoothly, and in mere minutes, Flight 7500 is en route. The seatbelt sign turns off soon, and Laura Laura makes an announcement, giving everyone aboard permission to move. Just like that, people start to move around the cabin, and Jake gloats about nothing happening even though he didn't turn off his phone. Raquel says nothing until she notices his stack of phones. She doesn't really approve of stealing, but Jake claims that times are hard.
Emotional issues very closed off.
As for Liz, she can't shut up about her wedding. In fact, she peels out her laptop and shows pictures on end to the Asian lady beside them. In the galley, Laura and Susie gossip about the passengers to their heart's content. Susie then asks Laura if she really believes Captain Pete will leave his wife for her. It turns out Laura believes the 3 days they'll spend in Tokyo will tip things in her favor. They start to make the rounds, asking passengers whether they need anything. Meanwhile, the Asian lady beside Liz and Rick gets fed up with all the pictures and just leaves the seat for good. Turning to her left, Liz tries to show Jacinta the pictures, but the goth pretends like she can't hear a thing. Coincidentally, Susie passes her seat at this point, and Jacinta has no problem hearing her. The tension is still palpable between Brad and Pia, but it's interrupted when the plane suddenly encounters some turbulence. It begins to tremble, spilling drinks and throwing water bottles across the cabin.
It's gonna work out.
The flight attendants struggle their way to their seats, and everyone is asked to buckle in. Weirdly, only Jacinta unbuckles her seatbelt, smiling as chaos ensues. The turbulence lasts 3 minutes tops, and sighs of relief go around the room when it stops. Jacinta, on the other hand, can't stop herself from smiling, claiming that turbulence is really cool. Just when things seem to calm down, Lance begins to feel a blockage in his airways. Laura and Susie are going around confirming the well-being of the passengers when Lance's situation gets worse. His seatmate has to call Laura's attention, and she rushes down. Checking him out, Laura tags in Susie and heads to the galley to grab a first aid kit. She first asks for any doctor on the plane to come up before running to Lance with the kit. By this time, there's already blood spilling from his mouth, and it gets so bad that he spits a bunch of it on the chair in front of him.
Don't wake me up for the meal, please.
As the situation worsens, Rick gets up to help, and Brad joins him, admitting that he's a paramedic. He places Rick on blood pressure duty as he tries to check Lance's pulse rate. Sadly, Lance starts to convulse, wailing that he doesn't want to die on the plane. After convulsing for a few seconds, he becomes totally still, and his body slumps inside his seat. Brad confirms that he's no longer breathing, and with the help of the flight attendants, he takes Lance's body to the galley. There, he tears open his shirt for compressions, and Brad does the mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. They use a defibrillator to try and jumpstart his heart. It doesn't work. They try compressions and resuscitation. These also have no effect. Defeated, Brad makes Lance's death official. The room falls quiet immediately, with Susie losing her will to stay standing. Jake peels away from the small crowd as everyone returns to their seats and sits down with a blank expression on his face. Turning to his left, he informs Raquel about Lance's death, and she's shocked to her bones.
Sir, are you okay?
A very tired Brad, alongside Rick and the flight attendants, perform the finishing touches to make Lance's body presentable. After this, he heads into the bathroom to clean up and take a moment for himself. Word reaches Captain Pete just then, and he calls up command to inform them about the death. He sees no reason to stop the flight for a dead man, so he's given permission to fly all the way to Tokyo, where a medical team will pick up the corpse. There's one more choice that needs to be made, where the body will be kept during the flight. As Brad returns from the bathroom, he finds Laura making an announcement to the folks in first class. She'd like them to move to the economy, and even promises to retain all the amenities they paid for. Brad quickly joins his wife, and they join the other first-class passengers to move their things down to economy.
To Tokyo.
Tokyo!
Meanwhile, Liz continues to give Rick grief for the mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, claiming that whatever killed Lance is now on his lips. To shut her up, he pecks her, leaving Liz to struggle to scrub it off with a napkin. Jacinta, on the other hand, is excited about the corpse and asks Rick if they'll let her go back to observe Lance's body. He only laughs in response. A few seats away, Raquel can't believe she'll have to spend the remaining 6 hours of the flight with a corpse on board. Jake is too freaked out to say anything in response. At this moment, two men show up, escorted by Laura and Susie, to transport the corpse to first class. They slowly walk past the passengers, and Jacinta takes this opportunity to graze Lance's hand, excited by how cold it is. They successfully settle Lance's corpse into a seat, and it's up to Susie and Laura to buckle him in. Laura does most of the work, though, seeing as Susie is too shaken up to move. People start to pace the cabin, Brad especially. On Liz's way to the bathroom, she finds him and bombards him with questions about Lance's death.
Death is a part of life.
Of course, he doesn't give her the answers she wants, so she leaves him alone the moment the bathroom frees up. Back in her seat, Rick and Jacinta talk about death, about how no one ever sees it coming. In turn, she warns him that life is too short to spend on things you don't really want, hinting that his marriage to Liz was a mistake. They're laughing when Liz comes back, and she immediately ruins the mood with her negativity, claiming that whatever Lance had is going to spread. The cabin falls quiet once again, and a worried Raquel pulls out her pregnancy test and heads to the bathroom. As she prays not to get a positive result, Laura goes about serving coffee to passengers. She reaches Lance's former seat and catches a glimpse of something beneath the seatbelt. Pulling it out, she realizes it's a tooth, and memories of Lance dying flood into her mind. She screams, and everything she's holding drops to the ground with her.
How'd you know I went to business school?
Things take a turn for the worse. For some reason, water bottles begin to compress, and the cabin begins to tremble. Quickly, Laura takes a seat and yells for everyone to buckle up. Some do, but the others who don't get flung out of their seats and slammed against the cabin roof. The same thing happens to Raquel, but after a few seconds, everyone falls down. The luggage from the overhead compartments starts to fall too, and the plane trembles more vehemently than ever. People take praying positions as a weird smoke fills the air, and soon, oxygen masks have to be deployed. The pilots are the first to put on theirs, at least one of them. Tom, Pete's co-pilot, is not so lucky, so Pete has to scream at him to get him to snap out of it. Then there's Raquel, who struggles in vain to open the bathroom door as more smoke seeps into it. Everyone else gets their masks on, but Pia's mask refuses to dispense oxygen. Just as she's about to pass out, Brad puts his mask on her, leaves his seat, and uses one of the free masks. He notices a mom and her daughter passed out in front and rushes to their sides without a second thought. Back to Raquel, she manages to push the bathroom door open, but it only gives room for more smoke to enter. Before she can even call for help, Raquel passes out on the floor. As for Brad, he takes a breath from any available oxygen mask as he tries to help the mother and her child up front. He succeeds, but one look at his wife reveals that she's passed out with her oxygen mask far from her face. Staggering, Brad tries to get back to her, only for him to fall on his butt. He's lucky enough to find the emergency oxygen tank and grabs it as he makes his way back to his wife. He takes off his mask once again and places it against her nostrils, praying to God that she takes a breath. His prayers are answered, seeing as mere seconds later, Pia coughs, continuing to take deep breaths. The struggling couple share the oxygen tank until the smoke clears.
Well, guess.
In the cockpit, Captain Pete and Tom take off their masks, and Pete announces to the passengers that it's now safe to breathe without the masks. Apparently, the first time they encountered turbulence, it damaged a seal on the plane, lowering cabin pressure. The passengers only ease up when the captain promises that they can deal with the problem. In turn, Laura goes around confirming the well-being of the passengers, only for her to find Raquel passed out in the bathroom. Instantly, she fetches a mobile oxygen tank and prays that Raquel doesn't die. It takes a couple of seconds, but Raquel coughs as she regains consciousness, subsequently bursting into tears. All Laura can do is hold her. Later on, Laura instructs the other flight attendants to clean up the place. They quietly make their rounds, picking up trash and cleaning up shards of glass.
All I wanted to do was be a mom.
While this is happening, Pia notices that the mother and child Brad saved are playing in the front. It reminds her of the 2 times she tried being a mom and the pain that came with her miscarriages. Brad talks about them trying again, but Pia doesn't want to go through that pain again. Down the hall, Liz watches Jacinta playing with her lip ring, and the moment she returns to minding her business, it seems like a strange figure. Someone resembling Lance almost grabs her. Frantic, she turns around, causing her husband to worry. She just chucks it up to being freaked out. Meanwhile, Jake sneaks into first class, crossing Lance's blood on the wall of the stairs. He arrives at the cabin to find it too quiet. Deployed oxygen masks dangling like haunted dolls on a swing. Quietly, Jake walks up to the body, only to get shocked when Lance's lifeless hand drops out of the blanket. He notices the wet walls, but this doesn't stop him from swiping Lance's watch, taking a piece of flesh alongside.
Dead guy's freaking me out.
Unfortunately, Jake can't suppress his goofy side, so he takes out his phone and starts recording himself and the corpse. Suddenly, Lance begins to move, and by the time Jake takes off the blanket, what he sees scares the joy out of him, leaving him screaming like he just saw a ghost. In the cockpit, something strange is going on. Captain Pete tries repeatedly to contact the control tower in Tokyo, but only hears static as a response. All the while, Tom falls asleep. Then there's Brad. His movie starts to seem too cryptic, with external commentary seeping in and the screen splitting like it's picking up another signal. Transfixed, Brad can swear that he's seeing Lance's face on the screen. He then draws closer to it, forcing Pia to pull him out of his confusion. In the kitchen, Laura and Susie are doing the dishes. The former is soon distracted by a green light she sees outside the plane. She approaches the window, wipes it down, and realizes that an F-16 fighter jet is flying right beside them. Thanks to Susie, Laura snaps out of it and gets told that Jake hasn't been in his seat for a while.
We gotta buckle him in.
Worried, they walk over to Raquel and ask about him. In turn, she admits that he went to first class. The flight attendants don't like the sound of this, but they have to find Jake out of professional courtesy. They stop at the stairs leading up to first class, taking a minute to gather courage before continuing. Upon arrival, the cabin is as eerie as ever, and the two walk ever so slowly, calling out to Jake. Weirdly, they don't find him, and where Lance's body is supposed to be, they find only a blanket. Freaked out, Laura is quick to leave, informing Susie to follow her down. She heads down first, but Susie starts to hear strange sounds emanating from one of the overhead compartments. Slowly, she walks up to it and shuts the compartment, walking down as quickly as she can afterwards.
You okay?
Yeah.
Brad and Pia discuss the huge fight they had in Cabo, recalling how they didn't speak to each other for 4 days. Apparently, they wasted such a beautiful trip, and Pia doesn't want to waste any more time. While they're talking, Raquel heads to the bathroom once again. Then Laura puts a call through to the captain, informing him about Lance's missing body. In turn, Pete advises her to check row after row, certain that the corpse must still be on the plane. She asks about that green light she saw, wanting to know if the captain came across an F-16 earlier. He gives a negative response, and Brad approaches Laura at this point. For this reason, she quickly ends the call with the captain, promising to report back if they find anything. Meanwhile, Raquel gets a chance to use her pregnancy test in the bathroom. She's waiting for the results and hoping it comes out negative when the cubicle begins to fill with smoke. She tries to make her way out, but the bathroom lock refuses to budge. In no time, someone wearing the same suit Lance wore crawls out from underneath and grabs her by her knees.
Hello?
Later on, Laura and Susie do a full sweep of the cabin as instructed, arousing quiet suspicion amongst the passengers. Brad, having listened to Laura's call with the captain, whispers into Pia's ear that Lance's body is missing. Liz overhears this and can't help but snoop. In turn, Brad also reveals that Jake never came down after heading up to first class. Things get even weirder as he talks about seeing Lance's face in the movie he was watching. Liz also confesses that she saw him earlier. With this, Brad concludes that whatever weirdness is going on must have something to do with Lance. All four of them then agree to find out what they can. They start by stealing Lance's bags and then find a corner to sift through it. All the while, Jacinta watches them. The flight attendants meet up in the galley with nothing new to share among themselves. Lance's body is still nowhere to be found, and it's the same thing for Jake.
Pete, I know you're not gonna leave your wife.
Susie chooses the moment to share a story about her first boyfriend, Sean, whom she loved more than anything. Sadly, after he died, she never felt anything like that again, even with Nick, her fiancé. Just then, Captain Pete steps into the galley and Susie gives them some privacy. Pete doesn't get a word in, but Laura makes it clear that she's aware he won't leave his wife. Looking into her eyes, he blames it on wrong timing, and Laura just walks away, putting an end to the relationship. Brad and the others rummage through Lance's bag, first pulling out his laptop and then bottled samples of hair belonging to 3 different girls. Next, Liz finds another bottle containing a product with a disclaimer about how it causes cancer. She then concludes that Lance must have been a serial killer and the girls must be his victims. Pia is in charge of getting into Lance's laptop, but she gives up after his birthday doesn't unlock it.
Always hoped I'd find that with Nick.
At this point, Jacinta sneaks in, presenting the wooden box Lance had hidden in another compartment. She then returns to her seat like it's nothing, leaving the box in Brad's care. He tries to open it, but the box doesn't budge, so he has to try to pick the lock. While this is going on, Jacinta grabs a blanket in the hopes of getting some sleep. For some reason, the blanket can't stay up, almost as if someone keeps pulling it down. It gets to a point where she peeks under the blanket, but finds no one beneath it. In the kitchen, Laura and Susie walk in on Brad and the others while they're carrying out their side mission. Rick quickly explains what's going on, but it doesn't make them look any better in Laura's eyes. She doesn't listen to anything else they say, including Rick's suggestion to look through Lance's checked-in luggage at the cargo hold. Instead, Laura sends them all back to their seats, and they drag their feet as they troop out. Left alone with Susie and Lance's things, Laura realizes that Rick had the right idea. She opens the hatch that leads into the cargo hold and grabs a portable floodlight. Laura then puts on her jacket, asking Susie to keep an eye on the hatch. Slowly, she climbs her way down, having no idea that Brad and the others didn't give up.
Yeah, there might be something in there that'll tell us what's going on.
They gather in the galley and break open Lance's wooden box. The moment they open the lid, an emo doll abruptly turns to look at them. They're all frightened at first, but Jacinta steps up, cradling the doll and looking at it with such admiration. Apparently, it's a Shinigami, a doll of death Lance was supposed to deliver to a client in Tokyo. Jacinta explains that the doll represents death in Japanese culture, and that whoever is taken from life too quickly can be stuck here until they let go. If they do let go, the real Shinigami comes to take their souls to the afterlife. She's certain that Lance is holding on with everything he's got.
Why would someone bring that on a plane?
Back in the cargo hold, Laura carefully walks around. It gets to a point where she almost gets crushed between 2 containers, but is lucky enough to step out of harm's way. Moving on, she gets the jump scare of her life when a dog suddenly begins to bark and hits one of the luggage stacked beside her. Many others fall on her as a result, leaving her groaning and turning on the floor. Just then, she catches a glimpse of Lance's checked-in luggage. She peels it open ever so slowly, only for a pale hand to creep out first. Laura is so scared that she slides as far away from the luggage as she can, screaming in hopes that someone will hear. Sadly, no one does, and Laura is dragged away by an unknown figure. Meanwhile, Captain Pete is busy staring at his wedding band when he hears a transmission on the radio. He quietly apologizes for his wife, Meg, before picking it up and tries once again to reach the control tower in Tokyo. Instead of feedback, he hears more static. He's barely turned around when the unknown figure grabs him and his co-pilot, Tom.
Oh my god, they're his victims.
Then there's Susie, who, although standing by the hatch, didn't hear any of Laura's screams. She'd been engrossed in her own thoughts, removing her wedding ring as she decides not to marry Nick anymore. She then squats beside the hatch in an attempt to check things out and watches as gray smoke pours out of the hatch. With it comes a hand. Shocked, Susie screams and quickly backs away from the hatch, pulling the attention of Brad and the others in the process. She runs up up to the first-class cabin, but this strange fog follows her. As Brad and the others approach the cabin, the fog retracts, giving Susie enough courage to walk towards them. Just then, the overhead compartment pops open, and she shuts it just as quickly. Brad, Pia, Rick, Liz, and Jacinta arrive at this moment, asking Susie what the problem is. Before their eyes, another overhead compartment pops open, and a pale hand pulls a screaming Susie into it.
Why wouldn't you tell me that?
Things take a turn for the worse as the plane seems to encounter more turbulence, so everyone except Jacinta heads downstairs. The emo chick is too scared to move, so she's left holding on to one of the seats. With Liz up front, the others join her as she steps into the cockpit. Sadly, they find both Pete and Tom dead on the wheel and a near-empty fuel tank. While they panic, Jacinta hears her own voice repeating the speech she gave Rick about death being a part of life. From the corner of the cabin, a strange figure with the same build as Jacinta slowly approaches her. In turn, she gets up and walks towards it, accepting her fate and sealing it with a hug. The others stagger their way downstairs as the plane seems to be in a nosedive. Only Brad checks out the bathroom and finds Raquel's body slumped on the floor, cold and lifeless. He returns to the crew, unable to say what he saw, and Rick, being curious, checks out the bathroom too. At this point, Brad accepts that death is inevitable and stretches out his hand to Pia. She takes it in a heartbeat, and together they return to the cabin to find their bodies lifeless in their seats.
I don't understand.
Apparently, they've been dead for the longest time, but held on to this realm just like Lance did. Rick and Liz also join them in the cabin and find their lifeless bodies slumped in their seats too. Just as Liz begins to cry, the entertainment center on the plane buzzes to life, and an announcement ensues. As it turns out, the Turbulence Flight 7500 encountered broke a seal on the plane. And the moment this seal gave way, a rapid decompression of air followed. The oxygen masks were rendered useless by the depressurization of the plane, and all attempts to contact the captain failed. Stunned, Brad and Pia watched their deaths. From how Brad grabbed an oxygen tank, down to how he lost his life trying to get Pia to breathe. The F-16 Laura saw was sent out to confirm if there was any life on the plane, but it couldn't find any. What's worse is that the corpses have been flying for the past 5 hours because Pete put the plane on autopilot. The plane is expected to crash into the Pacific Ocean the moment it runs out of fuel. Liz and Rick seem the most shaken up by this revelation, unlike Brad and Pia, who say their goodbyes. They share one last hug, their eyes watering with tears as the plane crashes into the Pacific. Much later, Liz is the only one who refuses to let go. Her soul roams the now empty but bright plane until she hears strange sounds coming from one of the waste bins. She opens it up to find the Shinigami doll, and a pale hand reaches out to grab her. This time, she screams and runs in the opposite direction. Most of the people on Flight 7500 never knew until the last moment that they had lost their lives. Brad and Pia, Liz and Rick, not to mention Jake, Jacinta, and Raquel, the flight attendants, Laura and Susie, and even Captain Pete. All of them had one thing or another keeping them bound to this world. One after the other, they let go of these things and were taken to the afterlife by Shinigami. Only Liz refused to let go.